senator dismissing military objections that it could be a challenge. This as Pentagon officials confirm they believe the Libyan Air Force is engaged in the fight.
It seems to me that we could neutralize very easily a very antiquated air defense system with old airplanes and obviously not very good pilots fairly easily, and then that would help the people who are sacrificing their very lives as we seek.
Another senator says the president should be ready to take it a step further.
I think we should be open to providing them with arms if they need it to succeed in their revolution.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified that they are a long way from making any decision on a no-fly zone. President Barack Obama says he wants the ability to respond rapidly, but gave no indication that he's going to do anything soon. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera at the White House.
Earlier, I spoke to Republican Congressman Ron Paul, who's on the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee. Paul is a noted isolationist, even within his own party. I began by asking him what he thought U.S. intentions are in Libya.
Any type of intervention, military or whatever, I think is rather risky. And I think it could undermine the efforts of those who would like to get rid of their dictator over there. So I guess only the president can tell you exactly what he has in mind. But I'm afraid it's open-ended, and that to me is a danger.
Why do you think that militarism is risky if we're being told that it's to help protect the Libyan people and it's being done for humanitarian reasons?
Well, we've been doing that for a long time in the various countries in the Middle East, and a lot of people die for it, both on our side and their side. A lot of innocent people die, and a lot of people who our so-called enemies die, and then we make more enemies, and our people die. I can't imagine Libya ever getting as bad as Afghanistan or Iraq, but it's always a potential. But even if it's a small degree of a problem like that, I do not believe that the humanitarian effort to protect people would be achieved by us using any type of force.
So what do you think then? What options would work that haven't perhaps been explored?
Well, options for our country, for America, should be to just stay out of it, and hopefully the will of the people is strong enough to overcome the dictatorship there. I truthfully cannot believe that those who are rebelling actually want us there, because that would undermine their efforts. That would make it an American effort, and I think there's a lot of resentment.
Some members of the so-called Libyan opposition have said that they would like to see a no-fly zone, for example, implemented, and that is one of the options that the president says is on the table right now. Why wouldn't that work?
I think militarily imposing a no-fly zone over any country, any place in the world, by our forces is an act of war. And technically, our president's not supposed to have the authority to go to war anytime he wants. But it is an act of war to do that. Whether you blockade or put no-fly zones over a country, it's an act of war. It's a serious thing and can lead to worse things.
What we're being told is that options are being considered by the United States and the international community to help the Libyan people. So how can the international community stand by when Libyans are being killed?
Well, don't we stand by when NATO and other organizations drop bombs in Pakistan and in Afghanistan, and innocent people die, and sometimes we admit it and sometimes we apologize. So some have died, and it's tragic. But to follow a policy that's liable to expand that, because history is rather clear every time we get further involved, and whether it's just a blockade or a no-fly zone, that is military interference, and it can very well lead to trouble for us.
That was Republican Congressman Ron Paul talking to me a little while ago. Now, according to a top Venezuelan official, Gaddafi has accepted a proposal by President Hugo Chavez to negotiate a solution to the unrest in Libya. The Arab League says it would consider mediation by Chavez. Rebel groups in Libya have rejected the idea of talks with the Libyan leader. I'll be back with more news from the Americas a little later on in the program. Now it's back to Imran in Doha.
Thanks, Daljit. At least 6 women have been killed by security forces who back Cote d'Ivoire's defiant leader, Laurent Gbagbo. Witnesses say the women were gunned down in Abidjan while marching in support of Alassane Ouattara. Now, he's the man internationally recognized as the winner of November's presidential election. Bernard Smith has this report and a warning: some of the images may be quite disturbing.
Shot dead here as they prepared to protest against the Côte d'Ivoire's incumbent president, Laurent Gbagbo. The victims were at least 6 women, part of an all-female demonstration, say witnesses, that thought their sex would make them safe. It's another sign that this country risks tumbling back into civil war.
Our mothers went out to march peacefully. Then we saw Gbagbo's tanks. They came and opened fire on the old women, killing at least 6 on the spot.
And this mortuary in Abobo, a suburb of Abidjan, is full. The 50 bodies delivered in the last 5 days have been piled on the floor. More bloody proof of the escalating violence between troops loyal to Gbagbo and supporters of Alassane Ouattara. The UN endorsed Ouattara's victory in November's election, but he remains holed up in an Abidjan hotel. Foreign delegations shuttle back and forth, but there's little progress. No amount of prodding and cajoling from the international community has managed to shift Gbagbo from the presidency. He still controls the military, though it's not known how much cash he still has to pay them. But Gbagbo can count on his protege, Charles Blé Good, to whip up the self-styled young patriots. In the west of the country, rebels have wrested control of a small town from pro-Gbagbo forces, another sign of deteriorating security. And according to the UN, electricity and water supplies to the north of Côte d'Ivoire have now been cut. Most of Ouattara's support comes from here. So far, at least 130,000 people have been forced to flee the violence in Côte d'Ivoire. Almost 400 people are known to have been killed. Diplomats think the real number is much higher. Elsewhere in the world, recently, governments have been brought down by figures far less dramatic than that. Bernard Smith, AlJazeera.
Yusuf Ubamba is ambassador of Côte d'Ivoire to the United Nations. This is what he had to say about the latest spate of violence.
You recall, 2 months ago, I warned about the genocide. Today, I will reiterate it. The genocide in the making. They are killing people along ethnic lines. They are killing nationals from foreign countries, for neighboring countries. They are killing people who are opposed to Mr. Gbagbo. That's not acceptable today in the 21st century, where elsewhere the people are taking their responsibility and asking for more democracy, more freedom. That's not acceptable.
Well, members of the United Nations Security Council have been discussing the situation in Côte d'Ivoire. Kristen Salumi has been monitoring events for us.
These troops right now are patrolling with the police force there. They are trying to intervene where there's where civilians are being threatened. They say they're using tear gas when there's a situation, when there's a blockade where the UN can't patrol, or there's a situation that needs to be